you're a crazy person though. You're going, I mean, see the USA and your Chevrolet, you're going everywhere.
The tour,
Yeah.
I did it to myself a little bit. I told him, I'm like, I'm a former flight attendant. I have no problem traveling. Send me everywhere because I love touring. It's my favorite part of the process. I absolutely
Okay.
loved it. But by the
Okay. All
time
right. We'll see
everything
how
was
long
all
that lasts, but okay.
by, by the time all was said and done, and I was actually looking at the logistics of the
Yeah.
tour, it was
Yeah.
kind of like, ooh, I'm gonna be
Ooh,
tired,
yeah.
aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you start sort of saying the same thing over and over again, you feel like you're lying, you know. That's cool. That's great. Yeah, no, love is good. It's good when they like you. And for the most part, it's mostly people that like you that come, which is good. So cool, cool, cool. This is a worst case scenario, which, as you know, I read, and we're going to be rocking and rolling with somebody next week. That'll be cool. So we can this to be our little rehearsal. Get into that. So you just kind of like fell out and just it just happened immediately for you, right? No, not exactly. So you were a starving artist for a while, theater major, right? Yeah,
That's
that'll go.
right.
So you wanted to act?
That was my first plan, my first love, my first dream was to be a Broadway star. And um, since I'm talking to James Patterson and not to, Patti LuPone, I think we can tell how well that went for me. I failed miserably at my attempts to be a Broadway actress. And
Yeah.
so
Well, how long did you stay in? You were in New York for a while?
I was in New York for a few years, and it was just one of those things where I just knew, I just knew that I was hitting a brick wall and it wasn't going to happen in that way.
Uh-huh.
So I left
And
and I
you were
went
doing a
home.
lot of glamorous stuff like babysitting and
I
passing
was
out
a
flyers and what
all of
else?
it.
Do you remember?
I was a nanny. Oh, God, let's see if I can even remember most of them. I was a nanny. I was a waitress. I was a hostess at a restaurant before that. I even worked as a furniture. I I worked in an antique shop restoring furniture. I
Okay. All right.
passed out flyers in Times Square. You name it,
Oh,
I
cool.
did it. Yeah, it was a lesson in humility for sure.
All right. Well, and then you went on to work in a bookstore for a while, right? In Phoenix, was it?
I did. Yeah. After I moved back home, I moved in with my parents. I did the whole, mid
Well,
20s.
that's always fun.
Oh, yeah. So fun being in your mid 20s, sleeping in your twin bed, in your childhood bedroom, wondering what
Uh-huh.
you're going to do with
Still
your
the
life.
dolls and stuff around the room to really drive you mad.
Of course, the Titanic poster is still hanging on the wall. Like, yeah, I'm
Okay.
back
All
in
right.
junior high basically. And
Uh-huh.
and my mom being a mother who they always know, she said you should get a job at Changing Hands up the street, which is a local indie bookstore here in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I applied, got the job, and it I mean, being surrounded by books all day long, seeing authors coming in, doing their events, talking about stories, talking about craft all day with readers, with writers.
Yeah.
It brought me back to, my childhood love. I'm a lifelong reader, a lifelong writer. I'd always wanted to be, dreamed of being a published author, but my time in the store was when that dream turned into a concrete goal.
I mean, did you like it with it? I mean, people don't realize it's not the most glamorous thing in the world. I did a book on booksellers and librarians, and I actually get one of the booksellers who, when she would interview for people who work there, and it wouldn't be, do you like to read books? It would be, do you like to clean toilets? Because people don't realize that it's a lot of work. I mean, stacking the books, bringing the books on, taking them out. It's tough. It's
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah.
When I go on tour now and they set up and break down the event, I'm always helping because like I know what that's like. I know how heavy those carts are with all the books that you gotta move to
Uh-huh.
set up the chairs to do all this stuff. Like it's hard work, but I love that. I loved being a waitress. I loved, working at the bookstore. I love being a flight attendant. I love, rolling up my sleeves and putting in the work. I
So the
love
flight attendant thing, you're doing that, and what with Alaska Airlines and somebody else, right?
Yeah, it started with Virgin America and then we
Okay.
were bought by
After they
Alaska.
went out of business, no, I'm kidding.
We
After you put
literally,
them out of business, you said, let me see what Alaska is pretty cool. They have the tail thing that they have.
uh-huh. Oh, the
The
guy on the tail?
Yeah, that's great. That's my
Yeah,
favorite of all the airline whatever symbols.
like symbols
It's
and
very cool
mascots.
looking.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's cool.
yeah.
So, but the fun kept going. So you're doing that, and you're writing falling on napkins and stuff, or
Yeah, it was, my time at Changing Hands as a bookseller was when I knew I wanted to be and was going to work towards being a published author, but I didn't have the idea. And when I started flying as a flight attendant, that's when ideas started coming, being on the plane. Um,
right.
it's an inherently dramatic and storytelling, environment. There's
Let me
stories all
just stop and say one thing for people that don't know you as well. TJ is great. You don't, I read a lot and I certainly get sent a lot of, whatever. And a lot of I go, like, this person can write good sentences and stuff. But a writer who you just go, this person has it, whatever it is, that storytelling ability, that sense of what paragraph stays and what paragraph goes and what chapter has to be strong, and you just have that thing, that it thing, in my opinion. And in a lot of people's opinions, obviously, since the books have really sold well. And so I just wanted to add that just in case some people are wondering, what are we talking about? So at any rate, so you're a flight attendant and you're starting to scribble. Now, where did the idea, if you remember it, for Falling? That's the first book that became number 2 in the New York Times bestseller list, we might add, and sold in over 5,000 countries, which is cool. That's what Salerno says, 5,000 countries. He exaggerates a little bit. That's TJ's agent, who we'll talk about, and we'll really run him through the coals quickly, run him over the coals. So anyway, so where did the idea for Falling come from?
Well, before I
That
share
first
that,
book.
yeah, I also just want to stop and say the it is so sur I have to tell you how surreal it is to be thinking about my time as just dreaming of being a published author to now being in conversation at the moment with James Patterson, who is saying what you just said about my writing. This is surreal and an honor, and I can't thank you enough for all your support and for just the idea that you even know that I'm a writer and have read my work and approve of it
Well,
as
the stupid thing is always just to have fun with it. I remember, the Domenico guy, and I'm so bad with names, and we were on a panel, and the thing was just starting to break big for him. And I went up to him and I said, here, I know this is stupid, but just have fun with it. And he looked at me like I was a madman. And from what I read about him, I don't think he had fun with the whole thing, this being number one and selling all these books and blah, 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 blah. My thing is very much like yours. Grew up in a small town, and I still consider it to be a blessing that I see stuff through the eyes of this kid from Newburgh, New York. It's like, this is cool. Yeah, I'm talking to TJ Newman. Damn, and I like her books. This is so cool. No, it is. It's just fun, I think. I'm simple-minded, but so at any rate, so where did Falling come? The idea for that?
the idea for Falling, it came from work. I was working a flight one day, red eyes. I was a red eye queen. I loved working red eyes. And we were doing a
Red Eye
bathroom.
Queen. That sounds like another good one.
That's a good title for a book, actually. Red Eye Queen.
Sure.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'll have to remember that. Run it by Shane. I'm working a red eye. We're doing a bathroom break for the pilots, which includes a security procedure for the flight attendants where we stand sort of in front of the door as the pilots are going in and out of the cockpit. And I'm looking out into the cabin, and it's dark and it's cold. It's a red eye. Everyone's asleep. It's quiet. And I have
Pilots are asleep. Cool.
no, pilots are awake. All the crew is highly caffeinated and ready to go. So I'm standing there, I'm looking out at the passengers, and I have this thought that their lives and my life, my crewmates' lives, all of our lives are in the hands of the pilots, which is not groundbreaking, that's fairly obvious. But it was the first time that I'd considered the flip side of that, in that with that much power and responsibility, how vulnerable does that make the pilots? And I couldn't shake the thought. I just couldn't shake the thought. And over a few days, it kind of solidified into a story, into an idea, a question. And so I was flying with a different set of pilots, and I just asked the captain one day. We were talking, and I just asked him. I said, "Hey, what would you do if your family was taken and you were told that if you didn't crash the plane, they would be killed? What would you do?" And the look in his eyes terrified me, because I knew he didn't have an answer. And I knew that that terrified him.
He was getting ready to call your supervisor and have you picked up at the right.
Maybe, but that was the moment that I knew I had a story, and that would be the book that I would
So
write.
you had this terrific idea, and then you wrote the book. Did you have the book when you went out to try to get an agent?
Yes, yes.
So you gave them the damn book, right? So what happened?
So no, nothing. Radio silence, rejection, nonstop.
Really?
And oh
Was it
yeah,
radio silence, or did they send snotty little notes,
it,
form notes?
a little bit of all of the above. Some
Uh,
radio silence, some form notes. I think there were like two agents that actually, read the manuscript. I only got a couple people that asked to see the whole manuscript, and they read
uh-huh,
it, sent like some feedback, so I appreciated that. I understand
uh-huh.
that, their slush piles are miles high. I get it. I
No, no,
get
no.
it.
All those people should be fired. Every single one of them. You cannot read even a few chapters of a book and not know that you have it. And if you can't get that, you should not be in the job. I honestly, and mine was different. My first book I turned down by 31 publishers. It then went on Edgar as best first mystery, but mine was not as a sure shot thing as yours. Mine was a smaller story. They weren't going to, it didn't have the potential to be a monster book. But, here's 31 publishers turn it down. It wins an Edgar as the best first mystery. So they don't know when. It's really crazy. It's crazy. So if any editor, now here's your revenge though. At some point, if you should keep if you didn't keep the little notes and stuff, they will send you books for blurbs. And that's when you can have your revenge. But the cool revenge is to do a blurb for the people because they're struggling authors. It's not their fault that they're, but then just say, in case you're forgetting, here's our last correspondence where you peed on my wonderful #2 New York Times bestseller, but I'm still going to blurb, for your client because I can't blame them or something like that. I don't know. So anyway, so that didn't work out. And then what happens? Your last resort, you go to this guy in the West Coast.
My last resort would, my 40-second submission was to Shane Salerno of the Story Factory. And it
Mhm.
was, at that point,
And Shane is kind of a legend.
he's
He's
kind of a
he's written a
legend. And
bunch of screenplays and yeah. Mhm.
yep, he's a New York Times bestselling author himself, but he is first and foremost a screenwriter. His first movie was Armageddon. His latest is the Avatar sequels. He knows a thing or two about stories and how to pitch and how to sell something. So I submitted my stuff to him, and it was my 40-second submission, and I kind of waited because I didn't think that he would give me the time of day. Like, I did not think, there was no reason that this big agent would ever look at my stuff and give me the time of day. But by the time you're on your 40-second submission, you're like, whatever, I'm sending everything out. Let's go for it. And when I sent my stuff to his, I wrote a handwritten note that went with it, because I mailed it to him. I mailed like the first 25 pages and my query letter, and I threw a handwritten note in there that was ridiculous. I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was basically like a very brash, help me help you, boy, do you want this type of
Really?
thing.
Okay. No,
Oh,
that's
which,
right up Shane's alley.
well, that's what's funny is like, and it could not be more opposite of how I felt, right? I'm feeling,
Uh-huh.
1 inch tall, and I'm writing this note like I'm, Empire State size. So I send this note off, and as he says it, he got the thing, which he only got, by the way, because his assistant was out sick that day. So Shane got
Uh-huh.
the mail,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and Shane doesn't usually get the mail, but he got it, and he opened the envelope, and he says that he read that first page, that handwritten note, and it made him so like, excuse me? Like
Uh-huh.
excuse me? That he
Uh-huh.
actually turned the page to the query letter. And then in the first sentence, I gave the pitch for the book. And as he says it, he was like, oh, that actually, that actually is a good concept. And
Hmm.
if the writing's there at all, then we've got a home run. And the writing was there, and as they say, the rest was
Yeah,
history.
that's the key. The writing is there, and that ability to tell the story and make things believable. And also, which doesn't happen that often, you're able to keep us interested in a lot of characters at the same time. And there are not many people. It used to be way back, people could write books and they would be able to keep you interested in 20 characters, but not so much anymore. Rowling can do it. She's great. I mean, she's a new character, and you're like, oh, well, that's so fascinating. That could be the star of the book. Another new, but you can do that, which is incredible. So the newest, oh, Shane, what more about Shane? Oh, Shane actually, I've been involved with him now for several months because he represents the Crichton estate. So, and he's actually the one who approached me, with Sherry Crichton about completing Eruption, which Michael, her husband, who died, obviously, had written, a bit of, and they asked me to repeat it or to complete it. So I know about Shane, and I know how he's the kind of person who will put you out there for 37 days of touring, and yeah, 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 that kind of thing. All right, so the newest, which I have here, and I was sent a copy, worst case scenario, which is another great concept. And you you talked about Chernobyl, and what was the place in Japan?
Fukushima.
Fukushima. Yeah, my person here has Hiroshima. I go, that's not correct. But you said they're kind of level sevens. But what happens in worst case scenario is 11 level 8. So tell me about that sucker a little bit.
Yeah, so the premise of the book is essentially I asked the question, what would happen if a commercial airliner crashed into a nuclear power plant? And
Ooh, okay.
yeah. And the idea for that story actually came about when I was doing research for Falling in another conversation with another pilot. When I was researching Falling, I would ask pilots all the time, questions about flying and about, the nuts and bolts of it, policy, procedure, things like that. But I would also ask them about the emotional side, the psychological side of being a pilot. And the
Sure.
question I would ask all the pilots I talked to was, what's your biggest fear? What's your biggest fear as a
Mhm.
pilot?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And one day I was stopped in my tracks by a pilot who looked me dead in the eye and said, my biggest fear is a commercial airliner crashing into a nuclear power plant.
Uh-huh, 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 uh-huh.
And I kind of thought
That's
he
bad.
was, that's bad, that's bad. But I also sort of dismissed it because I was like, what are the odds? Come on. And also too, they've shown us we live in a post 9/11 world. They've shown us that these structures and facilities have been fortified to withstand that if it was to happen. They've shown this. It's not a problem. And he listened to me. He just quietly listened to me. And when I was finished, he looked at me again and goes, and that's exactly what they want you to think.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, of course they do. Right.
Yep.
Like nobody can shoot the president. Oh, yeah, that'll never happen. Sure. Okay.
So the seed was planted for this book years ago. And then when I went
Uh-huh.
to start writing
Uh-huh.
this book, I knew I had to go bigger than I had with my first two books. And so I started researching to see, like, was there any validity to that? Was he right? Is that a legitimate fear? And it did not take me long into the research to discover that he was completely right.
Mhm.
And the premise of this book is entirely plausible.
Oh,
And I have to
100%.
say,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it scared the hell out of me. Doing my research, it did not take long to discover the vulnerabilities of a nuclear power facility and how that they could be um an incident that happened would create a level 8 style event of genuinely catastrophic proportions. We think Chernobyl, like you mentioned, and you think of, the exclusion zone and nobody lives there. It's been decades, all of the downwind effects that happen to that.
Uh-huh.
And there are other scenarios that could make that look like it was nothing. And,
Yeah. In the Crichton book, I always talk about there's two clocks ticking in that book. There's the volcano that's going to be the worst in 100 years, but there's something worse on the island of Hawaii. The government has buried something that could destroy the world. But in worst case scenario, you get about six clocks ticking at the same time. You have things going on in the plant. You have kids trapped in. You get all sorts of like, yeah. I mean, at least five clocks are ticking at the same time, which is great, which really makes for kind of fun reading, which is another thing you do very well. You always have that. You get a sense for these people who are in danger, and you care about them somewhat, and which is. I mean, that's how it works. I was gonna, it's interesting to me about this whole thing about guilty pleasures. I don't know why anybody should feel guilty about reading a book, any book, especially in this day and age. Or I was saying the other day about you go into a bookstore that you should get a star in your cheek. This is good. You went in a bookstore. You went to the library, another star in your cheek. This is a good thing. You're reading a book, star in your forehead. This is a good thing.
I could not agree with that more. We both write genre fiction, and look, that's what I grew up on. That's what I love. These are the
What are you
stories
talking about? I write art stuff. Come on. What are you
us
talking? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get
us
it. Yeah.
literary fiction authors here having this conversation. No, and I read a lot of literary fiction and I read a lot of nonfiction. I read all across the board, and I think that's important. And I also
See
think
what
it's
you got
important.
there. I see a Harry Potter. No, I'm kidding. Just
We,
gonna look.
yeah, the whole
Oh, no.
no, they're here. Everything's here. My whole house. I mean, it's
You
it's
could have at least
all
slipped one of my books in one of them. Jeez, come on. No, it's okay. It's good.
right
It's
there.
cool.
I've got Invisible right there.
Oh, okay.
There
Okay.
you
Thank you
go.
very much.
Sorry, it was cut
Excellent.
out of frame, but I also cut my
Yeah.
family out of frame. So,
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
that's
Okay.
that.
Now,
Yeah.
where are you? Are you in Phoenix
I'm in
still?
Phoenix. Yep, I'm in Phoenix. Yep.
Okay.
And
Okay. Okay.
you're
Where,
Florida,
where do your
correct?
ideas? No, I'm in New York right now
Oh,
on the
okay.
Hudson. On the Hudson here is 2.5 miles wide. It's very cool, very beautiful, and the color changes 4 or 5 times a day, and the current changes 4 or 5. So it just keeps changing. It's like a painting that keeps changing. It's very, very, very nice. Um, so where do your idea and now you don't have to reveal where you're going next, but kind of where do your ideas come from? Are you going to do another plane one next? You don't have to tell me where you're going because somebody will steal it because there's writers watching this and they will steal your idea.
You know,
They're cold-blooded.
regardless of stealing, I always like to play my next move close to the chest just because it feels like kind of safer
I
that
don't
way.
blame you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a
Yeah.
risk to do something, and I like to just kind of work on it quietly for myself because it's less scary. As soon as it's sort of like if you're expecting a baby and people say, "Oh, what are you going to name it?" and then you say,
Uh,
"Oh,
yeah.
Tori,"
I'm the opposite. I'm writing a thriller with Pope Francis, and I'll tell you, and I'll just let you know, Pope Francis and we're going to be touring together. It'll be great. Or maybe not. I will tell you, I mean, just the weird stuff about me and stories and whatever. Obviously, I have diarrhea of the whatever. But I was touring last year with my friend Lupica, and we had done this trilogy that we're doing. It was 12 Months to Live, and we got in the Jersey Shore. In fact, I think you might go into Thunder Road Books as part of your whatever. So say hello to them. We love those people in Jersey, and it was an awful day. It was one of these where the rain was just going sideways at you. And my wife and Mike Lupica said, "Well, come on, let's walk to the ocean." It was only a couple of blocks. And I said, "I don't know, why would we do that?" But I'm fine. So I'll walk to the ocean. So I get about 50 yards and I go, screw this. I'm not going to do this. I'm soaking wet already. This is stupid. So I start walking back to the hotel. And there's this little old guy on a bicycle riding into the wind. And one word when I'm seeing him goes through my mind. Just one word. I go inside, I write a 5-page outline for the next book I want to write with Lupica. And we just finished it yesterday, that book, based on that, watching that guy in a bicycle. And the title is not bicycle, but something else. At any rate. So that's like close to the vest, even though I throw out ridiculous teasers. At any rate, so you're a big success now. But you're still in Phoenix.
I'm still in Phoenix. Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. So what do you, is this good? Are you're having fun with being rich and successful and touring and all that stuff?
I'm having a blast being able to live my dreams, which is like you're saying, seeing a guy on a bike and having an idea and going from seeing a guy on a bike to creating a whole new world and a whole new story that readers will read and get to experience with you. That's the dream. That's all I ever wanted. I'm a artistic creative storyteller at heart. I thought it was going to be
Uh,
in Broadway. It turns out it's in books, and that's it. I'm still living
well,
in the
don't give up on Broadway. Write a play for yourself. What the
there
heck?
you yeah, there you go. If
Sky's
this
the
has
limit.
taught me anything that I hope people take from this too, is that like don't let go of anything. Be flexible. And if I had stayed in New York and had dogmatically pursued that, I wouldn't be here. And I don't even know that I would have achieved what I wanted to achieve. I was flexible in the way that I sort of changed path, but I was never willing to let go of that authentic part of me that said, you're a creative person, you're a storyteller, you will find a way to make that your life. That is what you're here to do. So yeah, I'm living that dream, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. Well, cool. And you happy?
I'm very happy. Yeah.
Excellent. All
It's
right. We're going to leave on happiness. Thank you so, so, so much. The latest worst case scenario, and all the rest of them. They're great. Great, great, great. And I live to find stuff where I go, oh, this is, and they're the kind of books which to me are rare, but that you love to read, which is you can't put it down, but you don't want it to end. So you wind up, okay, I'll only read 50 pages today, that kind of thing, because you want it to last for 6 days instead of 2 days or whatever. Anyway, but that's the way I've been with worst case scenario and falling. And what was the other one? Drowning?
drowning.
Drowning. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so, so much. This was fun, and I'll see you next week when we do something else, and we'll pay a lot more attention to worst case scenario when we do that.
Thank you. This has
Thank
been
you.
an
This is great.
incredible honor. Thank
And
you.
tell Shane that I was a good boy and I wasn't